there, welcome to Ready and Willing Podcast, our next episode. Really excited today. We've got Councillor David Molyneux, who's an Ince councillor but the leader of Wigan Council. So it'd be interesting to chat to David about things that he's done in the past, but also think what's coming in the future. So welcome, David.
Thank you.
Firstly, I mean, for people who don't know you, and there's not many people in Wigan don't know you for good or bad reasons, tell us a bit about your past, from where you've come from. That's it. You're an Ince lad. You've come up through that kind of stuff.
Yeah, obviously I've been a councillor for 43 years, but I've represented the Ince ward where I was born, where I was brought up, and I've always been passionate about that. But certainly over the last number of years since I became deputy leader in 2008, became leader of the council in 2018. Obviously, as I've said, I've described it before, it's a bit like a school bus. You start off sitting at the back of the bus and eventually end up driving it. So it's been a journey I've enjoyed. There's been a lot of challenges during that journey, but basically I'm an Ince lad, born and bred. Did all my education there, and certainly it's a place that I'm proud of.
So that's it. All your family's been brought up there. Your family yourself, naturally. Sheila, your wife, was from Ince, did a lot of work in the community yourself. You've done a lot of work with the sports clubs in Ince, Rosebridge and St Pat's.
Yeah. I'm passionate really about sport, and certainly I think I'm a grassroots sports organisation. They're so beneficial to our communities. I think you'll find out that some of our major sporting clubs at amateur level are probably in some of the most deprived areas within the borough, and the benefit that they can bring for the communities. It is something special, and it's not just boys and men. It's girls and women. It's everything. It's all part of the population and all part of the community that they're in. You know, I've been involved with St Pat's over the years through working with people there, and I'm very passionate about working with Rosebridge. You've got some very ambitious plans going forward for what they want to deliver for the community I represent.
So naturally, we worked together a long time, probably 30 years. When I'm saying work together, you really told me off lots of times over them 30 years. But I think naturally, as being leader, deputy leader on the cabinet, which we've done together, you've got that broad thing of your ward work, which is in Ince, which I know has been a priority for you. It's a balance in that one. But I've been in Ince with you walking around, and you can't walk around the street corner without somebody actually saying, "Hi, David, what about this?" Or people who know you. It's very proud, isn't it? It's very proud to represent the area where you've lived, people you've known all your life, and really you can look back at Ince and go, "Well, I made a difference there."
Yeah, definitely. When I think back, when I first got elected and what needed to be done in terms of housing, in terms of benefits for people, in terms of getting employment, better education process, and it's all part of what you want to deliver for your friends, for your family, and everybody you represent in your community.
So I mean, there's a couple of things recently you've been doing, the armed forces stuff, which you did at Smithy Green, the revamping of the library at Ince, which naturally, a lot of libraries have closed all over the country, and we've always managed to keep them in Wigan. But you've been really focused on doing that for Ince because people need it in Ince. They need that educational bit, and they need places to go. There's a cafe in there as well.
Yeah, it's a big thing in terms of giving young people the opportunities. I think you know me, Chris, pretty well, and I'm so passionate about opportunities that we create for the young people of this borough. And part of your community work is to promote that. And this year I spoke to you and we got to introduce where a child who starts school gets a library card. It's not a publicity stunt, it's to help them to get on that step of being able to read and write. Because once you've started that journey, where that can lead is absolutely brilliant. And I just think the more opportunities I can give to young people in particular, the better outcomes for the communities we represent.
So you'll know, and actually, we chatted to Andy a few weeks ago, Andy Burnham, about social media and the impact that has on all our lives. And some people who don't know us make comments about different things, about politicians, you name it, everybody. Part of this podcast was about people getting to know the people behind what's happening. And like you said, people in it know you really well. It's about getting who David Molyneux is really and what he does. So actually, you've got a balance between the leader and being a ward councillor, which I think you do pretty well because naturally you represent that area and people know you. So I think like you said, you've touched on all the sports stuff. There's lots of stuff in Insta over the years you can just look back. And I think one of the things that we don't do is kind of look back and kind of remember we carry on doing what we do. I suppose moving forward to kind of the things that's happening in the borough, things that are coming forward. Might be worth just touching on a few of them, David. What's coming forward?
Yeah, I just think obviously the town centre was a big talking point, and obviously being the leader of the council at the time and leading on that, a lot of people got really uptight that this was never going to happen. They're just knocking a building down or what's been built for 30 odd years. But no, we've just got. But that is an exciting prospect. I think town centres all across the country are going through a hell of a change, and I think no, we're one step in front of that in terms of what we want to deliver across the road from the college. Is exciting. It's going to be a town centre that we'll all be proud of, and certainly it will attract a lot of inward investment that we want to see coming through. With a great thing going on down at Eckersley's Mill, the cotton works, massive investment there, 250 million quid's worth of investment at the end of the day, creating what we all know as an eyesore and a derelict building that's been on the Wigan skyline for so long. And we're now moving ahead following the piers refurbishment. That has now taken a step forward this last week or so, and that was another exciting project that we got involved in. But unfortunately, we had COVID, and I think the world changed very quickly in terms of how we wanted to deliver things. And you talk about social media, Chris. I think social media played a big important part in people's lives during COVID. But at the same time, it put everything on hold, and now we're catching up. So I'm excited what's going to happen in the town centre. I'm excited what's going to happen down at Eckersley's and the pier. I'm certainly seeing the benefits that, and you know, you're passionate about it, what's happening at Hay Hall. I made a very brave decision by saying, come on, we're going to get this back and do something with it that benefits the people of this borough. And I think we've now seen that with the investment that's going in at Hay Hall, the excitement that is now starting to, people can see it without its scaffolding for a start off. And that is a big part of what we want to deliver in Wigan. And then I look across the borough, the stuff that's going on at Lee, the town centre there is going to see a big investment going forward over the next 4 or 5 years. And certainly I'm going across to Lee Infirmary today where they're opening a new operating theatre. And I just think all the investment that's coming in, not just in Wigan and Lee, but across the borough, makes this place an exciting place to be. I'm biased, you know, people expect me to be biased about this borough, but I can honestly say that we're now entering one of the most exciting periods for this borough over the next 10 years. And our location sets us apart from anything else in GM. We're the only authority in GM that is on the M6 corridor. We've got the West Coast Main Line, which will bring hopefully HS2 eventually. And we are in a good position, and we're in a good position where people want to invest. And certainly I think going forward, Wigan will be the place where young people may go off to universities across the country, but it is a place that I want to create where they want to come back. And that is important to me, and it really has a big passion in what I do.
I think if we touch on the kind of levelling up stuff that happened, so that's it. I know personally, and this is what people don't know, the work you did behind the scenes with the cabinet, with the Conservative government to try and get that levelling up money, which wasn't easy. It's not a matter of just picking a phone up and they go on, we'll give you 20 million. There's a lot of heartache, a lot of work goes on, and really a lot of burning the midnight oil to try and get that. But when we got a Labour government come in, that money wasn't guaranteed. So then your work started again, didn't it?
Yeah, we were given a lot of false dawns, really. And I'm like this. If I could get millions and millions coming into this borough, I'll talk to a Tory government. It doesn't bother me that. But what does bother me is when we get promises and then we find out that the promises were quite empty. And at times I felt we were being levelled down, not levelled up. And certainly the conversations that we've had previously with government ministers and everything was coming there, we found out it wasn't. And luckily we did have MPs, Labour MPs, without being too political, who we could talk to. And we've now secured that funding. It was said it was there, but it wasn't. We now know it is. So we were one of the authorities that could go there with a lot of confidence because of what we'd started, what we'd got in place, all the plans that we'd got in place. And that gave our MPs the power to say to government, listen, they're ready. So the money that we were promised, we got. And that's how we got the money for A-Hall. That's how the money we got for Lee. That's what we got for Ashton. And believe you me, any pots of money that become available that we can benefit from as a borough, across the borough, entire borough as a whole, we will be going for it. And hopefully, when it is available, we will get some.
So what people won't know behind the scenes, we have a lot of visitors coming from all over the country, sometimes all over the world, to look at how Wigan works and has been successful. I always said that success is that political leadership, but also working with management and also working with staff. I know you've been a big advocate of that because you do listening sessions with all the staff.
Yeah.
And I know there's this old thing of my door's always open, you can come in it. Well, we can't have like 6,000 staff walking through your door, but you can actually open up conversation with them. And people see me and you, and I'd like to think this is grassroots people. We are what we are. We go to the football, we sit in that stadium together with everybody. We're not up there highfalutin. It doesn't work like that. But I think it's that connection, isn't it?
Yeah, because we're one of the biggest employers in the borough. And I think now I've probably spoke to 90% of the staff. They all have that opportunity to ask me questions. They've all got that opportunity to hear what our plans are. And I think that's critically important because between 80 and 90% of our staff are residents of the borough. I visit councils all across the country. Other councils don't do what we do in terms of staff engagement. And I think that's critical. I know, and you know, the part they played when we had to deal with what went on in the pandemic. Each and every one of them wanted to get involved. So a lot of them did jobs that they didn't do before in terms of supporting what we needed to deliver. And I think that's critically important. And certainly I can walk through this town centre and people will pull me up. Sometimes they want to have a go, sometimes they want to support what you do. But I think that's important because if you lose that, you start to distance yourself from the people you represent and the people of this borough. And I don't want to do that. A lot of people have a do at me on social media who don't know me, who've never met me. Want to talk to me, talk to me. I'm not one of these people who hides behind some door thinking they'll go away. I always want to face up to people, talk to people and explain why. Might not always accept it. And I'm a person who always listens. I might not agree with what you say, but certainly I'll listen. But what I want to make sure is this borough gets the best opportunities it can to create a borough that's sustainable for many, many years to come, with lots of opportunities for people, for better housing, for better employment, for better education. And that's what drives me.
I think just looking back a little bit of your predecessor, Lord Peter Smith, me and you were really close with Peter a long, long time. You probably more than me. He left a legacy, Peter, didn't he, what he did in this, but he was a leader for a long time. And actually, I know you worked closely as deputy with him. I don't know if you want to speak about Peter.
Yeah, Peter certainly led the way in local government. And I think what we agreed with Peter at the time, looking back to 2010, when we went into austerity, we were probably one of the few local authorities across the country who faced up to that very early. That is when the Wigan deal, for example, was born. And that is how we started to deliver services differently. Certainly we faced the massive cut that we got to our funding, 160 odd million over that period of time. But because we made that giant step with Peter's leadership at that time and me as deputy leader, we survived and prospered because of the decisions we made despite austerity. And people were coming not just from all over the country, but all over Europe to see what was different about Wigan. Like I've spoke to leaders of councils from Sweden, from France, and certainly from a lot of authorities in the UK, including Scotland, including Wales. And I'm proud of that people now look to Wigan as we start our new era with Progress with Unity, that we lead by example and people can learn. And I'm happy to share and I'm happy to learn. And Peter started all that off back in 2010.
I think the other bit to that is the MPs that we've got here. We've always had a strong Labour control, but Labour MPs as well, even in opposition. So Neil Turner, Ian McCartney, Andy Burnham at the time. Now you've got Lisa, Joe, and Josh, and people go, "Oh, it's Labour," but that's kept us together, hasn't it? As we've had that say there, but it's kept that unity of everybody working together.
Yeah, it's about the political passion. And the political passion that we have is to do the best for the people we represent and for the communities we represent. And I've been lucky because I've worked with some great MPs over my period in the council. But you need that voice in Parliament to make a difference. I know with devolution now that we've got, and Andy's probably spoke about, we're taking more control away from Westminster and back into the regions, and that is critically important. But at the same time, you need that strong voice in Parliament who'll stand up for this borough and make the pleas for this borough when funding gets tight, when things are facing this country that are causing great difficulty. We need that strong political voice. And I think we've been lucky in this borough over a number of years that we've got that voice out in Parliament.
Just touch on something which you don't talk about very often is when you got the MBE. And that's, we've had these conversations and you've always said that it's the people who kind of helped me to get that or that. But I know your family were very proud. I know Sheila was very proud of that. And you went down to get the MBE. What did it mean to you that day?
Well, it came out of the blue, quite honestly. The last thing this lad from Ince and went to Rosebridge, he thinks he's going to get an MBE. Well, it wasn't in the script, was it? And suddenly I found out that I'd been nominated for an MBE. They actually don't tell you who's nominated you. They just give you a brief of what's been said about you. And I thought, good grief. And you thought, yeah, well, I did that, but it's not something that I stand on a platform and start shouting about. Because one of the things, and you know how passionate I am about it, was being involved in saving Wigan Athletic, and that was mentioned as part of the reason I got the MBE, and I felt very, very pleased about that because it was a very important part of what we want to do as a borough, and it was important to me personally. And when I brought the news to Sheila that I've got the MBE, she said, "What for? You know, you've only been doing."
Brought you back down to earth.
But certainly, it was a very, very nice award to get, and it was a nice day that we had in London getting that from Prince William. So, and he knew all about Wigan. I did tell him I'd sat with his wife. I didn't say the princess. I'd sat with his wife at the World Cup rugby game, and he was quite impressed. And he knew a lot about Wigan. But that is what you want. You want people in power and positions to know about Wigan and to know about the borough and to know what we get right, you know, and that's across the borough. And it's something that's important to me.
I think probably leading on to that, and this is what a lot of people won't know, and actually I know because we sit together, is that you got an invite to the Queen's funeral.
I did,
which was quite interesting.
Yeah, it was a bit surreal, really, because obviously it's a very sombre occasion. Obviously, all my life the Queen had been part of it in terms of the ruler of this country, and to actually go to Westminster Abbey, and I think it weren't me. That was me representing this borough, and I think that's important. That once again we were recognised, not just me, but the borough was recognised, and I was down in London for the Queen's funeral, which was a bit strange to say the least. And it's not something you can kind of start jumping up and down about. I've been invited to a funeral, is it? But certainly it was special. It had a special meaning to me. I actually sat with the staff from Buckingham Palace, which was quite interesting. Sat with the guy who was over all the post at Buckingham Palace, and they sat with me and explained who everybody was who they walked in, and then I realised I got a list of who was walking in, but I'd not looked at that. But no, it was a special occasion.
I suppose that shows how diverse it is. One week you sat with me as a crank, listening to me telling about things. Next thing you're at the Queen's funeral, sat with Joe Biden.
Yeah, Joe Biden was on my shoulder, you know. And the one guy stood up and I thought, he's going to get shot. Just start down, you know. President USA is behind you. And then members of the royal family. But they are people. They're people like us, aren't they?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And probably Joe Biden had the same political drive as we had, wanting to do the best for the people he represented.
I think that's the diverse what we deal with. So one day you can be out on the street at Ince talking to people about stuff that goes on in the community, and next thing you're sat with Joe Biden, and it's keeping a level head with that, isn't it, and doing it. And I know you do, because we are what we are. We don't think we're anything special. We're here because the people put us where we are, and do that.
Like I said, when I start the journey, it's not something you don't envisage when you go on this journey, that that we're on. That you do have to represent the borough. You've got to support the borough. You've got to speak strongly and correctly for the people you represent, and I want to do that all the time. That's the most important part of it. And certainly, I've had a very interesting 43 years, and in some respects, I've enjoyed what I've done, and certainly what I've achieved.
I think what we touched on earlier, and you mentioned it, the work at Wigan Athletic and Wigan Warriors, and I know you've worked with both of them. I've kind of sat on your shoulder and watched what's going on there. Probably a bit of insight of what's gone on there in the past, but also what the future holds for sport is so. And naturally, we've got Derek Beaumont coming on one of these podcasts and what's happened at Lee as well. Yeah. So sport means a lot to people.
Yeah, it does, and certainly it carries a lot of people's hopes and the amount of pleasure and pride people get out of supporting the teams. And I can honestly say I'll speak about all three of our professional clubs. We recently had a Progress with Unity sport event at the Edge prior to the Wigan and Lee game and prior to the Wigan Athletic Fulham FA Cup game, with over 450 young people down there, actually meeting those sporting heroes and asking them questions. And Derek and Chris Brooks, Mike Danson, at that time Paul Maloney, Matty Peat, Adrian Lamb, all the players were there, and they were there speaking as a panel, speaking individually about their lives in terms of how they got to where they are, the pride that they had in the sport that they played. And it was refreshing because I know, like, obviously with Mike Danson owning both the football and the rugby, and I know what Mike's ambition is, and certainly meeting Derek and Derek took a gamble on terms of his involvement in what he got involved at Lee, and that has worked so well. Everybody knows about Lee Leopards now, and what my ambition is, hopefully, I hope to see either a Challenge Cup final or a grand final where Wigan Warriors play Lee Leopards. You know, that would put the top hat on it. And I think back to our sporting success at BBC Sports Personality of the Year, I kind of boldly said that this is the sporting borough of the country. It really is. And when you start to think what trophies we picked up there, but also there was the challenge of Wigan Athletic, which obviously I knew Dave Whelan, what Dave Whelan had got involved in, and we were part of that journey to get to the Premier League in terms of the support that we gave. But there was a real big threat, and there's been two real big threats where Wigan Athletic could have disappeared. And I'm grateful that the people who got involved now have a passion for the borough, for the town, but also a passion for sport. I can honestly say I'll write a book sometime about that particular episode because I certainly met some different and difficult characters along the way with people who wanted to take over the football club for different reasons. But we've now got that comfort of a very strong owner who wants to do the best for both the rugby and the football, and certainly wants to do the best for the town. And certainly over at Lee Sports Village, which is a council facility, and we now share that with Derek and Lee Leopards. We've also got Man United ladies playing there. And I can see going forward that people once again know where Wigan is, know where Lee is, and it's a lot to do with the sporting success that we're seeing on the sporting field.
Thanks, dear. I mean, there's lots of sporting people across the borough. Keighley probably being the most profile one at the moment. Jenny Meadows and Trevor done a lot of work there. I think it'd be an injustice just to mention it because there's so many, and we couldn't name them all. Yeah. There's just so much goes on in this borough because naturally we've got the Be Well stuff that we all deal with, and all our gyms and the health stuff that we could talk for hours. So definitely going to get you back and talk about your stuff like that. Yeah. Thanks for coming. Really appreciate you sharing time. Naturally, we know each other, so I've tried to be not too biased, but I am biased because we work together and we're real people. And I think the message, what we're trying to get out there is we're real people with real families, real issues, and we do this for the goodness of what we can. We don't always get it right, but out there, just listen to us. And as David said earlier, talk to us. You know, we've not got no hidden agenda. We'll listen to. We can't deliver anything, but we'll always listen to people. And we're not these people behind the door who's going, oh, we're just going to do whatever we want. There's a lot of passion in Wigan, and there'll always be difficult issues. But David runs it, a really solid, steady ship at Wigan. And I'm really proud to be part of the cabinet that worked with David a long time. We're good friends, and I really treasure that. So thanks for coming. Thanks for all the stuff that you said, and I really appreciate that. And I think we're going to have students coming in a minute.
Okay.
Welcome back. We've got Dylan here today from the college who's going to give David a bit of a grilling. So over to you, Dylan.
Okay. I've only got a few questions for you. The first one starting is, what is the biggest challenge you currently face in your role?
In my role, well, it's always going to be finance. Any big organisation like Wigan Council, which is probably one of the biggest metropolitan boroughs outside of London, with a population of 300,000. That's always a challenge in terms of making sure that we deliver the right services to meet people's needs. Always improving, certainly, the services that we give and the responses that we give. And that's always going to be the challenge for anybody in government or local government, is to making sure that what you deliver within the financial constraints that you have are the right ones.
Yes. If you weren't a councillor, what career would you have followed?
Well, I'm an engineer by trade. Like I was an engineer for 40 odd years, so it's not. I was never a full-time councillor until recently. I've been in engineering from the vehicle industry to heavy industry to the aerospace industry. So I've worked across a full range of engineering technologies and backgrounds, and it's something I've always been involved in since I left school.
Sounds quite nice, actually, engineering. Do you have any favourite model, anything you like to engineer in general? Or?
I've been involved in some interesting projects. When I was in the aerospace industry, I got involved. We manufactured the wings for the A380. So that the A380, I don't know if it still is, Dreamliner maybe something similar. A380 is probably the biggest passenger plane that people flock to Manchester when it flies in. And I can honestly say that I purchased all the parts for the first 22 set of wings for an A380. So hopefully if you fly an A380, I hope the wings don't fall off, because that's something I've been involved in, which was very interesting.
Very nice. Is there any projects you're working for Wigan that you're very passionate about?
All of them. I can't. Obviously, I want to see the town centre delivered and completed, and I do know that that's now well underway. And the opportunities that will create is absolutely brilliant. Obviously, Hay is passionate for the people of Wigan. The town centre in Lee is another one. So all the projects I'm involved in, certainly there's quite a few to keep me interested, let's say that, and I'd like to see them all to come to completion, because I know what difference that will make to this borough.
Right, sounds very interesting. For any young people starting out, what advice would you give?
What I would give, I probably wasn't the best person to go to school with, but when I look back, I should have been. And I only probably woke up to it later, that education is so important, and the best opportunities you can get are through whatever you achieve in education. And I think there are that many opportunities out there. And I certainly think, try to focus on it the best you can. There's a lot of distractions as you get older, but certainly keep an eye on what you're doing educational wise. I get very passionate about apprenticeships, because I didn't take the university route. I went through apprenticeships, and I've been a passionate person on that for quite a while. But I went down to the edge on one day this week, Tuesday, where 47 universities from across the country had set the stalls up to speak to people who were in the sixth form, from either the college or from the deanery or from John Rigby or John Winstanley or wherever, St Mary's. And certainly I felt that was so significant. That wouldn't have happened a few years ago, where universities from all over the country come to Wigan to engage with our young people and explain the opportunities that are available. And I think that's so important now that we deliver that. And for young people of this borough, like I said previously in my previous interview, I'm not bothered which university you go to. I want you to come back. I want to make sure that this borough is a place where people want to come back to. And that's something that I am passionate about. And I would say to young people, look at every opportunity that's available to you, because that sets you on the right path for the rest of your working life.
Very true. Well, that's all the questions I had. Thank you for answering.
Okay, thank you.
Can I thank Dylan? Can I thank David for being open and honest? And we'll definitely get David back on the podcast when them projects start coming to fruition in the town and in Lee. So across the borough, there's lots of exciting things happening. So thanks, guys.